The Supreme Court of the United States is the highest court in the federal judiciary and serves as the final arbiter of constitutional issues. The court's decisions have a profound impact on the interpretation and application of federal law throughout the country. However, the process of how cases reach the Supreme Court and how the justices ultimately decide those cases is often misunderstood. This reading will explore the key aspects of how the Supreme Court operates, including its docket, the various opinions issued by justices, and the principle of stare decisis. The Supreme Court's docket refers to the list of cases that the court has agreed to hear during a particular term. The docket is carefully curated, as the court receives thousands of petitions for review each year, but typically hears only about 80 cases. The process of getting a case onto the docket begins with a petition for a writ of certiorari, which is a request for the Supreme Court to review a lower court's decision. These petitions often come in the form of briefs, which are written legal arguments submitted by the parties involved in the case. Briefs play a crucial role in the Supreme Court's decision-making process, as they allow the parties to present their arguments and legal reasoning to the justices. When the Supreme Court receives a petition, at least 4 of the 9 justices must vote to grant certiorari for the case to be added to the docket. The court typically grants certiorari for cases that involve significant constitutional issues, conflicts among lower courts, or issues of national importance. Once a case is heard by the Supreme Court, the justices must deliberate and issue their opinions. There are 3 main types of opinions that may be issued: majority opinions, dissenting opinions, and concurring opinions. Majority opinion. The majority opinion is the opinion that represents the view of the majority of the justices and serves as the court's official ruling on the case. The majority opinion is written by one of the justices in the majority and explains the court's reasoning, interpretation of the law, and the legal principles that support the decision. Majority opinions carry significant weight and become precedents that lower courts must follow. Some of the most influential and consequential majority opinions in Supreme Court history include Brown versus Board of Education, 1954, which declared racial segregation in public schools unconstitutional, and Obergefell v. Hodges, 2015, which legalized same-sex marriage nationwide. Dissenting opinion. A dissenting opinion is written by one or more justices who disagree with the majority's decision. Dissenting opinions provide alternative legal reasoning and arguments for why the majority's decision is incorrect or misguided. While dissenting opinions do not carry the force of law, they can provide valuable insight into the legal issues at stake and may influence future court decisions or legislative action. Notable dissenting opinions that later became the law include Justice John M. Harlan's dissent in Plessy v. Ferguson, 1896, which argued against the separate but equal doctrine upheld by the majority, and Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's dissent in Ledbetter v. Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, 2007, which criticized the majority's narrow interpretation of pay discrimination laws and ultimately led to the passage of the Lilly-Ledbetter Fair Pay Act in 2009. Concurring opinion. A concurring opinion is issued by a justice who agrees with the majority's decision but offers a separate legal reasoning or analysis. Concurring opinions can clarify, expand upon, or narrow the scope of the majority's ruling. Justices may issue concurring opinions to emphasize specific points, suggest alternative legal theories, or express concerns or reservations about certain aspects of the majority's reasoning. Justices may issue concurring opinions when they agree with the outcome of the case but have different legal rationales or wish to address specific issues not covered by the majority opinion. One of the foundational principles that guide the Supreme Court's decision-making process is stare decisis, which is Latin for to stand by things decided. Stare decisis is the legal doctrine that requires courts to follow precedents established by previous decisions, promoting stability and consistency in the law. By adhering to stare decisis, the Supreme Court helps ensure that the law is applied consistently and predictably, allowing individuals, businesses, and government entities to plan and organize their affairs with a reasonable degree of certainty. This principle also contributes to the perception of the court as a stable and impartial institution, separate from the shifting political winds. However, the Supreme Court has the authority to overturn its own precedents when circumstances warrant a departure from past rulings. This process, known as overruling precedent, is typically reserved for cases where the court recognizes that a previous decision was wrongly decided, is outdated due to societal changes, or conflicts with other legal principles or constitutional rights. While the Supreme Court is generally reluctant to overturn precedent, there have been several landmark cases throughout history where the court has chosen to do so. For example, in Brown v. Board of Education, 1954, the court overturned the separate but equal doctrine established in Plessy v. Ferguson, 1896, recognizing that segregated public schools were inherently unequal and violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Another notable example is Obergefell v. Hodges, 2015, where the court overturned its previous decision in Baker v. Nelson, 1972, and legalized same-sex marriage nationwide, citing evolving societal attitudes and the fundamental right to marry under the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. While the reasons for overturning precedent vary, the Supreme Court typically does so when it recognizes that a previous decision is fundamentally flawed, inconsistent with constitutional principles, or fails to align with the changing values and circumstances of society. The process of deciding cases at the Supreme Court involves a complex interplay of legal arguments, judicial opinions, and adherence to the principle of stare decisis. The court's docket is carefully curated, allowing the justices to focus on the most significant and consequential cases. Through majority opinions, dissenting opinions, and concurring opinions, the justices engage in a rigorous legal discourse that shapes the interpretation and application of federal law. While the court generally follows precedent, it retains the authority to overturn past decisions when circumstances warrant a departure from previous rulings, reflecting the court's role as the ultimate arbiter of constitutional issues and the guardian of the nation's evolving legal landscape.